into the Cypher. Prepare for another all-nighter.
On the Talk of Chicago, 1690 WVON.
White Sox were the typical White Sox you see at the beginning of a season where they start out slow and things always look like it's a hot mess. I always say last year was an exception to the rule where they started out strong and kind of maintained that pace, which was surprising. But this is a team that has a different look to it. So I got a bit more concerned when Gavin Floyd went down. And the funny thing about that is Gavin Floyd drives me crazy. To watch him pitch, the motion he goes through, if you mentally get him out of his game, it's like he can't come back, but he is good for 13 wins. So when he dropped out of the pitcher, I always thought, if I got to look at Nate Jones or Axelrod, this is not looking good. And even though Axelrod has obviously, he pitched.
He's a typical fifth starter.
He is, and he actually he pitched what five and a third, gave up 3 runs. Obviously did enough to keep them. But here's the thing: I don't think you can look at this game against the Marlins, which was a sweep, and say I feel great about this because shouldn't you be able to sweep a team like the Marlins that offloaded everything they had to the Blue Jays, pretty much? So pretty much they're bankrupt at this point when you talk about talent. So to not be able to win that series or to take at least 2 out of 3 would have made no sense to me.
But the way they were playing about a week and a half ago, this wasn't guaranteed that they'd be able to sweep Florida or Miami.
Exactly, and that's why I look at this and I say, it was great to have a sweep, but obviously it's a momentum builder. Then you get to go into a series against the Cubs. You should be able to sweep them too. I'm just kidding, sort of. But the bottom line is just that they're in the middle of the pack, and let me just say this. And it pains me to say it, they may be in the middle of the pack the whole season.
Yeah, that's what I said about the start of the year because if you look, I'm looking at their batting line average and lineup. Diaz hit, 296 last year? He's hitting 249 now. You weren't going to get what you got from him last year. Keppinger, Mark mentioned this is kind of surprising. He's only at 214. He's an average guy, a guy that gets singles and a few doubles, pop a home run every now and then, Konerko at 238 is the surprising part. His age, I'm kind of catching up with him.
He had some injuries, so he kind of was out for some games. So, he's got to get his groove back. It's still early in the season, too. So.
But then you have Rios, who's hitting great, around 300. Alexei's surprisingly good for this time of year. He's normally not around 280. He's normally down there in the Adam Dunn club at this time of year, So that's a good thing on the offensive side. But the offense has been second to the defense is my main concern so far. They've gotten the defense together. We'll see if they can start taking some walks. That was the main thing. They weren't even taking walks, not to mention getting hits.
To me, part of what you see is the inexperience of Robin Ventura. You have to accept that this is a man who's into his second season of a manager of a baseball team who has absolutely no pedigree or training outside of being a player. Managing this team, and granted, you can say he has surrounded himself around, with a managing team that can help, but still, you have to feel like, do you see an improved Cleveland team because of Francona?
I like that team. I like the Indians. We'll talk more about them in the next segment.
You know what I'm saying? You got to say that a part of the deficiency with the White Sox is going to be Ventura's lack of experience. Is it kind of rearing its ugly head now in his second season of him managing? And I think that's realistically something we have to consider. Does he know when to make the right adjustments with the right talent base when it's time to do that?
My thing with Ventura, like today's game, Axelrod, he was close to, he was a little over 90 pitches, I think, at the time he was taken out. But in the 5th inning with 1 out, and then, like you have Lidstrom, you have guys who you normally see in the 7th, 8th inning, Lidstrom and Thornton, and these guys, you bringing them in the 6th inning and stuff. I know he likes his bullpen. I understand that, but he goes to them a little too early for me. Now, last night, yes. I know he had the, complete game from Peavy. Peavy went all 9 for him and got the win. But overall, I think he uses that bullpen a little too much for my liking. And that might be a product of him being a young manager.
And I agree with you. I think he does. The way he uses the bullpen, it leaves something to be desired. Because my thing is this. Should you be leaving Peavy in for that many innings?
He only finished with 117 pitches last night.
I know, but and it's not that. Obviously, I think he's back to a form that's respectable. I don't think you'll see a Cy Young PV ever again, ever. No. That's just it's not going to happen. But I don't know that. You're right. It wasn't a high pitch count, and for once he didn't abuse a bullpen, and that makes you wonder: is it because PV was like, "I got this. Just let me do this. Don't worry about it. We got it." That could have been very well a part of it.
Maybe so. But I really don't know. Overall, I kind of feel like their record is at 24-24, and I'm kind of iffy on the Sox right now. Still, I'm glad they're not horrible. right now. It's
Well,
kind of the way I'm
as
looking
of last
at it.
week, they were at the bottom of the division. At least they've now managed to get to the middle of the pack. And of course, they're looking up, at Cleveland and at the Tigers. But at the end of the day, some things the hitting is gonna have to be more consistent. With Gordon Beckham going out with the injury, and to me, this was one of those make it or break it seasons for Gordon Beckham. This was the season you needed to see him become the player at the plate, not defensively, because defensively Gordon Beckham is on it.
He's the glue, obviously.
For
He's
the
the glue of that defense.
For the fact that he is actually a natural shortstop that was then put at third base and then moved over to second. I mean, defensively, he's good at what he does. You just weren't getting production at the plate. So now, unfortunately, with the injury, it's a setback for him. But you still need him back in there because you're right. Defensively, they were looking real raggedy there. They still are kind of looking a little raggedy.